Hello again, everyone, and welcome back for the second episode of the Orange Bowl Huddle video series. I'm your host and honored to be your host once again, Tony Segreto. You know, the last time we were together, the ACC Network's Mark Packer joined us to preview the college football season. But think about this. I mean, didn't that seem like just a couple weeks ago? Well, in the blink of an eye, we're already in week 9. Week 9, which means the Capital One Orange Bowl is like, what, 2 months away? How great is that? Well, today we're going to be joined by another very special guest to give us a mid-season update of the 2022 college football season, and maybe we can get her prediction on who she thinks will be playing in the Capital One Orange Bowl this year. And afterwards, we'll take a look at everything Orange Bowl is doing right here in our own backyard to benefit the community. One of the things that Orange Bowl does best is really, really take an interest and make this community better. Some of the things that we're going to touch on are Orange Bowl legacy projects, Extra Yard for Teachers Week, the OBYFA Park of the Week program, and we're also going to preview the annual Orange Bowl Cheer Championships. But before we get into all of that, let's welcome in our special guest for today, ESPN's college football reporter, Andrea Adelson. Andrea, it is so nice to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, the ACC landscape is starting to flip a little bit. Listen, Clemson's still sort of ruling the roost, but certainly not as dominant. There's always that week you're thinking maybe they'll lose, maybe they'll lose. Before it was like, okay, they're just going to roll through the schedule. But now we have Wake Forest, who is playing really, really well. You have North Carolina, who's an outlier, who can beat anybody on any given day. I mean, I know that's cliche, but it's the truth. You know, we saw what Duke did this past week to Miami. I mean, look what Syracuse is doing. I mean, they were in the limelight on the national game this week. So from your perspective, it's got to be a lot of fun now to be dealing with a conference specifically where everybody seems to at least be involved in the national conversation.
No question about that. And you're right about Clemson. Last season, I think, had them falling back to earth a little bit, if I could use that cliche. Yeah. And now we have seen other teams be far more competitive. Having said that, though, this is Clemson's conference to lose. They are the heavy favorite right now to win the ACC. But you're absolutely right. Seeing Wake Forest for a second year in a row as a top 10 team, and still I don't think they get the credit that they deserve for all the strides that they have made under Dave Clawson, took Clemson down to the wire, losing in overtime. That was a heartbreaker for them. And they were actually competitive in that game for the first time in a really long time. We saw what Syracuse did this past weekend. They're going to be a favorite potentially to win all their games the rest of the way out. And you mentioned North Carolina. I think a lot of people thought last season was going to be North Carolina's year in the Coastal Division. Had a little bit of a disappointment, but now this year with that dynamic offense, Drake May, and what he's been able to do for the Tar Heels, I think even a step above what Sam Howell did a year ago. And everybody who has paid attention to the Orange Bowl knows what Sam Howell did in that game several years ago. But now it feels as if North Carolina is putting everything together. The defense is playing a lot better. They're the heavy favorites to win the Coastal Division now, maybe a year later than we anticipated. So those 4 teams right now are just playing outstanding football. And even though Clemson looks like they've maybe dropped back a little bit, they're still the big favorite to win the ACC.
Yeah, understood. And rightfully so. Dabo's done an amazing job there. But I want to talk about Wake Forest for a minute. I don't think people appreciate what they've been able to accomplish and the restrictions they're under. You know, when I sort of put Wake Forest in that Stanford, Notre Dame, Duke kind of, pot, because, you know, it's a very aggressive curriculum academically. The scores, you know, there are not a lot of gimmies and getting players in. So what they've been able to do, and to be able to flip it from, okay, we're just a golf school or just a law school, where they have players coming in now looking to go to Wake Forest. I think they've really, to me, that's the story of the ACC right now.
And it was the story of the ACC last year. So to be able to see Wake Forest continue on with what they've been able to build under Dave Clawson, and you're right, there are restrictions there. There are players who have to meet a specific academic standard to be able to get in there, but also Dave Clawson and his staff are recruiting a specific type of player. They're not getting 5 stars. They're not going to be able to out-recruit what Clemson does. They know they're a developmental football program, so they have to find the right guys who fit exactly what they want to do, especially in that unique offense where they run those mesh concepts, right? It's not as if Sam Hartman was somebody that every single school was giving an offer to. But what he's been able to do with what they've asked him to do has now elevated him to an elite level. And I know it's bothered Dave Clawson that Sam Hartman is not in the Heisman Trophy conversation this season, considering what his numbers are. He just had 6 total touchdowns against Boston College. And again, lost a heartbreaker to Clemson, and that's going to keep him out of the ACC championship game, potentially, we all think. But the bottom line is this is still a top 10 program, but maybe because it says Wake Forest on the uniform or on the helmet, people don't want to give the same type of credit that they would to a school that has that more established football tradition. But make no mistake, what Dave Clawson has done there is truly a Herculean effort to take Wake Forest from where it was. And this was a losing program that he took over. Some bright spots under Jim Grove. They did make an Orange Bowl for the most part. Those bright spots were here and there. Now they're bowl eligible for 7 straight seasons. And I think they've got a great chance to make it to the Orange Bowl this year. And that's a tribute to what Dave Clawson has done, the types of players they've been able to bring in there, and what they've been able to get out of them, how they've been able to develop those guys.
Totally agree. I could not agree with you more. And I also agree over the fact that it may be because it says Wake Forest on the uniform that they're not getting the recognition that a lot of people think. And you know what? At the end of the day, does it really matter? Because if they just keep winning, and they get into, a New Year's Day bowl, like Orange Bowl, like our bowl, for example, people are going to recognize them. People are going to know, and they're going to wind up showing a lot more respect. Let me ask you about Mac Brown. His magic seems to still be working. A lot of people go, well, these older coaches, they're maybe the younger players don't identify with them, or their talks are starting to get stale. But Mac seems to be reinventing himself, and these players seem to just love him.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we've seen North Carolina be on the verge of taking that next step. They have recruited at an extremely high level since Mac Brown has gotten there. So we've all seen the talent level on this team, but they haven't quite been able to put it together. We saw the Orange Bowl season. We thought last year was going to be it. It wasn't. Now this year, though, he made some changes on the defensive side of the ball. And while it looked a little shaky at the beginning of the season with the way that defense was playing, over these last 3 weeks, they've really settled in after really getting embarrassed by Notre Dame at home, considering where Notre Dame is right now. Really tough loss for North Carolina with the way they played defensively, but that maybe was a turning point for this team. And now we're starting to see them play a lot better. That defense made some game-saving plays against Miami in Miami that kind of catapulted them to the top of the Coastal Division. And now, as they finish out the stretch, heavy favorite to win the Coastal. And that's a huge tribute, I think, to the changes maybe Mac Brown made in this offseason. One of the things that he's continued to say is, look, we haven't been a team that's been able to play with expectations. Every time people think that we're going to be good, we're not. And so he had to change the messaging for this team in the offseason and hold his players more accountable, right? Doing the little things. We always hear coaches about, the little things. That's what's going to take us to the top. I think North Carolina has starting to do those little things, specifically on offense and on defense. They're listening. They've got the talent. And I think they're going to make it into the ACC championship game this year, when nobody really thought this team was going to do much of anything, because we had so many questions about what that offense was going to look like.
Well, if Wake Forest thinks they're not getting respect, let's talk a little bit about Syracuse and NC State, because you talk about 2 programs that are not, I believe, are not getting kind of the recognition they're getting. I think people were shocked to see that the national game, was Syracuse Clemson. They're going, what? Syracuse? Are you kidding me right now? This the basketball school is competing, and they did. They competed for a long time. But give me your sense of both those programs.
Well, this is how it is oftentimes in the ACC. When you've been a program that maybe hasn't been at the top and it's been a struggle to get up there, perhaps you don't get the same recognition as some other schools in other conferences that we won't name. And I think some of that had to do with Syracuse and the way people were viewing this team early on in the season. The last couple have been losing years. It's been really disappointing. And you're right, the reputation is basketball school. But what Dino Babers has been able to do through the early part of this season, I think has been phenomenal with the way they've also reinvented themselves on the offensive side of the ball, bringing in two assistants from Virginia that have kind of changed the mindset, the mentality, and what they're doing with Garrett Schrader. I was not surprised that they took Clemson down to the wire. I knew that they were going to, because this is a team that's playing with a lot of confidence right now. People maybe discredited some of those come from behind victories they had. That win over Purdue was a big win. The opener against Louisville, that was a huge win. And so I just like what these players are doing because they believe. And that's different from what we've seen out of Syracuse over these last couple of seasons. I believe every team they're playing now, 4 of them have winning records, and yet Syracuse is favored to win, I think, just about all of them.
Right.
Don't be surprised if this team finishes 11-1 this season. And as for NC State, my heart really goes out to that program right now with the loss of Devin Leary, their quarterback. Maybe you can see in the background the Heisman hat that I have for him. They were really hoping that this was going to be a transformational season for this program because they had Devin Leary coming back, because they had so many players who were coming back. They were preseason ranked top 15. And the Devin Leary injury just changes everything for them as they head down the stretch. I still think they're going to finish strong. I still think this is a bowl team, but maybe because NC State had these visions of potentially playing for an ACC championship this year because they had the bulk of their starters returning, it might be a little bit less satisfying if the results don't end up the way that maybe they hoped they would at the beginning of the year.
And I think that's what happens a lot of the times with programs like NC State. They're starting 22. They're ACC winners. If one of them goes down, the position competition isn't strong enough where they can fill in that hole with someone as good. And I think that's an issue. And I just think that'll come with recruiting. Don't you agree?
Yeah, no question. Look, their defense has played at an ACC championship level without question from the start of the season up until now. The offense, though, once Devin Leary went out, look, I give them credit for beating Florida State. That's when Devin Leary got hurt, and they were able to come back and win that game with their backup quarterback, Jack Chambers, who's a transfer in from an FCS program. But you're absolutely right. They've been so reliant on Devin Leary over these last 3 seasons that sometimes it's hard when you have to go to the backup quarterback when everything that you're doing on offense is geared toward your 5th-year senior that you think is going to have another outstanding season. It's just going to be a change in mindset because now Jack Chambers comes in. He's a running quarterback, maybe not necessarily strong at some of the things that Devin Leary is strong at. And so you've got to retool a little bit on offense. They just had an open date. So I expect them to look a little bit different, to be able to play to the strengths of what he brings to the table. But they're also going to try and play their freshman quarterback to be able to get him some reps now as they look forward to what the future is going to look like.
You mentioned Florida State. So let's talk about Florida State in Miami. Give us your perspective on both of those programs right now.
Well, I think that with Florida State, I think they're still going to finish strong, to be honest. 4-0 start, and I know a lot of their fans may be a little bit deflated after losing 3 straight, but those were the 3 toughest games on the schedule for them, the 3 best teams in the Atlantic Division that everybody picked to finish ahead of Florida State, right? And they played close games against all 3 of those teams, probably wish they had the NC State game back, and really probably a stretch of that Wake Forest game back and a stretch of the Clemson game back. So I like the strides that they've been able to make under Mike Norvell. I think that they have a chance to win out, to be honest, when I look at who is left on the schedule. Easier said than done, of course. But if we had gone into the season and said Florida State was going to be 4-3 at the open date, I think a lot of fans would have taken that.
I agree. I totally agree with you.
Given who they had to open with, LSU, and then what that ACC schedule looked like to open the season. I mean, they've played the majority of their Atlantic Division games already, and they just got to their open date. So it wasn't the easiest schedule. So to be able to do that and start 4-3, I think it speaks volumes to what Mike Norvell has been able to build there, and also the fact that we're seeing this team not quit. previous seasons, maybe things get down and okay, we're gonna mail it in. They haven't mailed it in
Yeah.
any game this season, even when things were down and it didn't look good. To be able to come back against Clemson and make it a game at the end, again, I like what Mike Norvell has been able to do there. I think they're a definite bowl team, and they've got a shot to win 9, depending on what happens here. Jordan Travis, outstanding season. The run game has been terrific.
Which again, I think
After my,
let me excuse me for 1 second,
yes,
then talk about Miami. But again, if they win 9, again, if you were to tell Florida State fans going in, hey, we could win 9 games this year, they would have go, okay, where do we put our money now? I think that's the way they would have reacted. So let's talk about Miami, because there was a lot of expectation. A lot of people were just excited, and they still should be. I know it's hard for me to say. It's not hard for me to say it, but I think it's hard for people to accept it. Give us your take.
I did not pick Miami to win the Coastal Division. I was one of the few that didn't have them because they were the preseason favorite to win the Coastal. I just thought this was going to be a more difficult transition with Mario Cristobal and the things that he's asking these players to do, because he knows what it takes to win a championship at Miami. And when you talk about the grind and the hard work and the competition and getting the locker room to a place where these players are competing not only with each other, but against each other to make everyone better, to make this a team, I'm not quite sure that the players have gone all in yet on that. And I thought that would take some time because it's a completely different mindset. And we heard Mario say that after the loss to Duke. We need some tough guys here. This is not going to be for guys who think, oh, I'm going to play at Miami, I'm going to put in my couple years, I'm going to go to the NFL. That's not the way he wants to run things there, for obvious reasons, because of what he did when he was a player to win a championship. So I'm not surprised that they're not atop of the Coastal, but I am surprised with what has happened in some of these games. You're Miami. You can't lose at home by double digits to Middle Tennessee and Duke. That just shouldn't happen. And the way that those games happened, 8 turnovers against Duke, even though Tyler Van Dyke gets knocked out. This is a team that I think we thought was going to have a powerful run game going into the season. That hasn't quite fallen into place. And I know it was a lot to put on Jake Garcia's shoulders against Duke. But again, 8 turnovers. But of course you're going to lose by double digits when you turn the ball over 8 times. Middle Tennessee game, I thought there might be a bit of a letdown because of A&M, and this generally has been the MO at Miami. They get up for these giant games against SEC teams or whatever the non-conference may be, and then the season kind of falls off the rails a little bit. Yeah. Again, thought it might be a little bit of a letdown. Not that type of letdown against Middle Tennessee. So I understand the disappointment that Miami fans are feeling right now, because nobody wants their team to look like that against teams you were favored to beat by double digits.
Yeah, it's hard for them to take. It's hard for them to take. But I think if anybody can handle it, who's got a tough skin, it's Mario.
Yeah,
and that's to the point I was bringing out earlier about North Carolina State. One of the things when Mario played, whether it was Jimmy Johnson or Howard Schnellenberger or whoever it may have been, they always talked about position competition. And Miami's not there yet. Miami doesn't seem to have that. They don't have all of the players in yet. And I think it'll take time. So with all of that said, let me just really quickly, the overall landscape of college football seems to be transitioning almost on the fly. We're seeing huge contracts that are being made with TV. We're talking about, super conferences. Is that a possibility? But there's no question, and it's hard to believe we're already in week 9. This college football season has just brought us some of the most exciting games. I mean, just from my perspective and my silo, and I'm not asking you to agree or disagree, but for you to cover all these games, and I know you concentrate mostly on the ACC. Give me your take overall on the college football landscape.
Well, I love seeing new teams enter the conversation, right? Because All right, let's be honest. We talk about Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson every single year, Oklahoma, right? We talk about them every single year. And it's starting to get a little bit boring, right? Throw Georgia in
A
there.
little
Right?
boring,
Okay.
a little
All right.
boring.
A little boring, a little regional. Oh, we got the same teams over and over. So to see what Tennessee has done, right? Has been truly remarkable because I'll be honest, I live in Orlando. I covered UCF. I know Danny White, their athletic director. I know Josh Heupel, their head coach. And when they hired Josh Heupel, who wasn't their first choice, by the way, yeah. I was like, I don't know. Is he able to get it done? But what he's done with that offense and Hendon Hooker, who was basically told at Virginia Tech, yeah, if you want to transfer, go for it. To see that rebirth of the program, boy, that's been exciting to watch. TCU, what Sonny Dykes has been able to do in year one over there, outstanding, right? So when you see stories like that, even a Syracuse, to see them come up. What about Kansas? I know they've fallen off a little bit, but Kansas early on in the season, you love to see those types of stories in college football, the unexpected. That's why we love college football, because anything can happen. It's really nice to see teams that aren't the, traditional, all right, let's slot in the same 4 teams in the playoff. It's nice to see some of those teams really step up and play well. Now, again, the last month of the season, I think is going to be completely up for grabs. Anything is going to happen. But for the first 8 weeks, I think it's been as exciting as ever. I told people, in the offseason, NIL, I got realignment. I'm like, let's just wait for the games. When the games start, we're going to feel really good about college football. And hopefully that's the way other people feel, because that's the way I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So, all right, let's get that crystal ball out. Let's become a little prophet, do some prophesizing for us. Give us, if you were to put 2 teams in the Orange Bowl right now, based on where they are today and based on where they'll be, you believe, at the end of the season, who do you think will be playing in our game?
Okay, so I love Wake Forest. As I have said in this conversation, I think they have a great chance to be 11-1. Because I think they're going to take care of their games against NC State and North Carolina and Syracuse they still have left. I think Wake Forest is going to do it. And so therefore, they're my pick to win the Orange Bowl. And by the way, my colleagues also have Wake Forest. So that must be a popular pick right now. And on the flip side of it is a little more difficult because of the tie-in situation, right? We know an ACC team is going to be there, but whether it's going to be an SEC, Big Ten, who knows what's going to happen there. I'm going to go with Michigan. My family's probably not going to be happy with me saying that because they're big Michigan fans. My husband's from Ann Arbor. They probably want Michigan into the playoff, but I think they're going to be also 11-1. So I'm going to take Michigan against Wake Forest.
Okay, interesting. And that, I think actually that would be a really interesting matchup myself. Yeah. I think it'd be great. Andrea, it's been a real pleasure to be with you today. Nice to see you again. I hope you're enjoying your stint with the ACC and traveling around the country and covering them. And I'll tell you what, you may have the best group of coaches in terms of being, you got coaches who are affable, they're charming, they're very forthcoming. They don't give you the standard, quote unquote coach speak. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times they'll kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. So, you got some great personalities to deal with. So it's been an honor to have you here on our Huddle series, and we look forward to seeing you hopefully in the Orange Bowl toward the end of the year.
Let's hope. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to see you. Stay with us. We're going to take a quick break so we can get a word in from our great sponsor.
This is James.
Jimmy! This is James.
Jimmy! Jimmy! Oh!
The 2021 Toyota RAV4.
Jimmy!
The RAV for all of you.
Boy, that was great to have Andrea on. So great to see her again. She does such a wonderful job for ESPN, especially covering ACC football. Well, now because of the success of the Capital One Orange Bowl football game, Orange Bowl is able to do so much in the community through its Orange Bowl Cares program. One of the most impactful pieces of Orange Bowl Cares are our legacy programs. Orange Bowl and its partners have committed more than $25 million to legacy programs, major projects intended to make not just an impact, but a lasting impact on the day-to-day lives of South Florida residents. One of those projects is Orange Bowl Field at Glades Pioneer Park in Belle Glade. This past September, Orange Bowl and its partners cut the ribbon on phase 2 of this project. And by the way, this is an amazing project, revealing a brand new building with space for community meetings and health and recreational programming, an outdoor shaded fitness gym, and additional park furnishings. Phase 1 was completed in December of 2019, and it included a state-of-the-art synthetic turf field, a new electronic scoreboard, and new walkways. Future plans include a new playground, a picnic pavilion, and a grand entry plaza. Orange Bowl Field at Glades Pioneer Park is the 5th field to be renovated in South Florida by Orange Bowl and its partners, with the 6th park, Orange Bowl Field at Mitchell Moore Park in Pompano Beach, to be revealed later this year. Now, another legacy project that Orange Bowl was proud to unveil recently was the brand new Media Center at Coral Cove Elementary School in Miramar. Thanks to Orange Bowl's partnership with the CFP, Foundation's Extra Yard for Teachers program, the school's Media Center received new, modernized classroom furniture and soft, colorful seating areas and creative spaces to encourage innovative learning. It was unveiled during the CFP Foundation's Extra Yard for Teachers Week. And is there anyone more impactful in our children's lives than teachers? I mean, we can all remember the great teachers in our lives. You know, since the Orange Bowl Media Center Makeover Project launched in 2017, the Orange Bowl Committee and the College Football Playoff Foundation have committed more than $100,000 annually to provide enhanced learning resources, equipment, and materials to give students optimal opportunities to achieve academic success. Since that program's inception, 34 South Florida schools have received a Media Center makeover, with South Miami Heights set to debut later this year. Thank you to our sponsors, Amazon, Comcast, Moss, and Truist. We could not do this without you. Continuing the celebration of Extra Yard for Teachers Week, every year Orange Bowl recognizes a teacher in its community that has gone above and beyond to educate the youth of South Florida. It's a great way to give back. And this year, the Orange Bowl Committee surprised Mr. Ralph Santiago of Coral Cove Elementary School with a $1,000 Donors Choose gift card. The donation will be put toward classroom projects and resources for Mr. Santiago's 3rd grade students. Mr. Santiago, we could not think of a more deserving teacher than to get this award. Keep up the great work. Now, another community initiative taking place right now is the Orange Bowl Youth Football Alliance Park of the Week program. Throughout the fall, Orange Bowl staff, committee members, and of course our mascot Obi have been visiting all of the parks and the teams that make up the OBYFA, which is home to over 10,000 youth football players and cheerleaders. These local parks even once hosted games for current NFL stars Lamar Jackson, Geno Smith, Isaiah McKenzie. That's pretty incredible when you think about those names right there. And at each park of the week that we visit, players and their families are treated to in-game contests, promotions, and giveaways, and the leagues are awarded with commemorative plaques and financial contributions for park improvements. It's another great way for Orange Bowl to make an impact in its community every single weekend. And lastly, get your pom-poms ready, folks, because the Orange Bowl Youth Football Alliance cheerleaders are welcome back to the mat to compete for the 2022 Orange Bowl Cheer Championships on November 13th. This full day of competition takes place at the Rick Case Arena at the Don Taft Center at Nova Southeastern University, and will give our 1,000 cheerleaders the opportunity to showcase their skills in front of professional judges for a chance to be crowned this year's top OBYFA cheer squad. We really look forward to that every single year. Duffy Sports Grill is a huge supporter of the OBYFA and all of its events. So to speak more about our partnership, let's bring in Joe Webb, president of Duffy Sports Grill.
When we first got in contact with the Orange Bowl Committee, we were so excited about getting out in the fields and being a part of the games with the athletes, the cheerleaders, and there's 13,000 participants. That's a lot of family members. And we really want to get out in front of those family members and let them know what Duffy's was about. Not only our charitable work, but to come in and enjoy our great food. We have pretty much a scratch kitchen. So our food is far and above any sports bar, in my humble opinion. But it was really important for us to give back to the community. And we weren't able to get to every single field. We just didn't have the manpower to get to every field. So this is a really great way for us to spread our touch out to as many families as possible. We're very excited about the relationship. The Orange Bowl Cheer Championship is super exciting. We're so proud to be a part of it. I'm a dad with 2 daughters, and having the female athlete, the rising female athletes recognized along with the football players and the parents is just, it seems natural, right? It's just, it's all important. Everybody's an important part of the experience. The cheerleaders are as important as anybody on the field and as a parent. So we're excited to be a part of it, and we look forward to giving the award out.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to Duffy Sports Grill for your support of Orange Bowl. Well, folks, believe it or not, that's going to do it for our second episode of the Orange Bowl Huddle. A big thank you again to ESPN's Andrea Adelson and Joe Webb from Duffy's for joining us, and thank all of you for tuning in. You know, we really enjoy putting these together, and we hope you do as well. Orange Bowl cares, and your support, that enables us to do what we do, not just in these video series, but throughout the community the entire year. So for all of us here at Orange Bowl, I'm proud to say once again, as a member, I'm Tony Segreto. We thank you for joining us. And keep in mind, the game's only 2 months away. We better see all of you there.
This is James.
Jimmy!
This is James.
Jimmy! Jim! Oh!
The 2021 Toyota RAV4.
Jimmy!
The RAV for all of you.
Is your car giving you a field day?
Bring it in. We'll fix that.
Right now at Tire Kingdom, enjoy our lowest tire price guarantee on all of our best-selling brands. Only at Tire Kingdom.